hashtag Business Express 981.
Thank you, sir. Good morning,
Good
Valentine.
morning,
Good morning,
Rotus.
Lagos. Damilola of ARM is with us. Damilola, good morning.
Good morning, Valentine.
Good
Good morning,
morning.
Rotus.
All
Good
right,
morning,
all
Vegas.
right. Good morning, morning. Okay, very quickly before we start off the show, I do need to give a shout out to the CFA Society Nigeria. They had their Charter Awards dinner on Friday night. I was there. It was a fantastic event. They honored all their class of 2019 CFA charter holders. For those that don't know, the CFA stands for the Chartered Financial Analyst Program. Wale Okunriboye was there as a guest. He's a CFA, head of Sigma Pensions Investments. Mr. Razak Ahmed, he was there as well, CEO and founder of Carrywise. He's a CFA. The deputy managing director of Access Bank, Mr. Roosevelt Michael Ogbonna, he was there. Damn it, he got his charter this year. A grown man with he got his charter this year. I mean, I'm still struggling with level one. So shout out to Mr. Banji Feintola, the president of CFA Society Nigeria. A special shout out to Omolola, Frank, and Timmy, who kept the entire process going on that Friday night. And shout out to Doris. Doris got her charter this year. She listens to Business Express and introduced herself to me at the event. And Alex also listens to the show. Everybody, congratulations. And damn it, we keep the fight alive, have you?
Yeah, we keep it alive.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. All right, so look, let's quickly jump into land border issues. The main news is that the president has he's extended the border closure until January the 31st.
2020.
Yeah, 2020. Yes, I do want to read this part that came out from the circular. It was signed by the Controller of Customs in charge of enforcement, Mr. Victor David Dimka. He says, "I'm quote, I'm directed to inform you that it is observed that despite the overwhelming success of the operation, particularly the security and economic benefits to the nation, a few strategic objectives are to be achieved. And so as a result of that, they want to extend it." It's interesting. I haven't been able to measure this overwhelming success that they're talking about to the economy and security. But Dami, what are your thoughts on them extending the border closure to the 31st of January?
Well, I wasn't surprised because initially the main reason why they closed the border is to curb illegal exportation of PMS into neighboring countries, and I to some extent I actually think it's I mean, if that's the motive behind that, I think it's a good fight. You
Okay.
understand? But then it also impacted some other things as well. Just shortly after the closure of the border, we saw headline inflation, spike to about 11.2% or thereabout.
Right, right.
We also saw, even our viewers can attest to that. We've seen increases in price, here and there, spaghetti, rice. Even I myself, so I had to, going to the market just recently, I had to observe the slight jump in prices. That's the negative side to it. But when you also think of the fact that particular there are sectors of the economy that have been largely impacted by illegal importation of
Okay.
small goods into the country. A typical example of that is rice producers and also the producers of palm oil. Because I talked to on management of some of these companies, and most of them lamented over 2019 because they saw very slow demand for their products, and they were unable to perform well this year. So in a way, I would say it's both the good and the bad. The good being that some companies have benefited from the closure of the border, and the bad being that this has cascaded into higher consumer prices.
Okay, so I see Muste has Muste sent in a message. Say, what exactly is the success? Because it seems only the customs boss has been talking about the success. Can we measure the terms, and what are the long-term measures of this not going to be a stopgap and back to square one? See, between August 22nd, yeah, is when this thing was closed.
Okay.
And this is now November the 4th. Yeah.
Okay.
If you are a rice producer, right? How do we measure the fact that domestic rice production has increased? By the way, I'm sorry, I had local rice on Friday. Yeah, that thing was full of stones, right?
Naturally.
And
It's not processed like the foreign rice. And the cost of processing is a lot. So the farmers, local farmers, do they have the capacity to bear that cost? That's another thing.
And
you'd ask.
this is what I'm
Do they
saying.
have the machinations or the mechanisms, the infrastructure that they need to make that process better for you, so you don't see stones?
Ogodre has joined us. Ogodre, good morning to you. Ogodre, let me throw it to you. What they've extended the border closure to January 31st. The secular here says, despite the overwhelming success of the operation, they still want to extend it. That's amazing, eh?
Sean says on WhatsApp, we can't measure the success of anything the government announces in our market or economy now. Audio success.
By the way, you went to a fake market for your rice. Some of us are eating very crispy,
I ate it
clean
I won't
local
mention
rice.
the place. I ate it at a restaurant. But please go
They,
ahead.
they, didn't,
Go ahead.
they didn't pick you well. I really don't know.
that's true.
I guess for me, the curious thing is what's the measure of success, and that's what we said here before. That when you want to do these things, you come out and tell the public clearly what your intentions are and how you'll be measured. So that way we understand clearly what you expect to get out of border closure.
Right.
So for us, for Nigerians, what we're seeing here is rising cost, right? So we're not sure whether government has actually seen their coffers increase, due to this decision. Now they've extended to end of January. What I do know, Rotus, is that this is going to be very disruptive because now a lot of other countries, very neighboring countries, are looking at what's happening, and they're also sitting down. They're not just sitting down, keeping quiet. They're sitting down thinking, trying to figure out what next to do or how to react to Nigeria's big move. The guys who crafted the AFCFTA.
Nice one. You got it. You got it.
These guys too,
FCCA.
they're also watching closely what's happening
Yeah.
and trying to figure out how this could untangle, unravel rather, if other countries start to adopt this, not just within West Africa, but even in East Africa, even in Southern Africa. So interesting times, man.
Okay, I do want to add this here. Odenigbo Egozi on Twitter, he sent this question. He says, "Has anybody heard from the newly constituted economic team on this border issue? Is it their advice?" That's the Economic Advisory Council with Bismarck Rewane and Mr. Soludo and doing Salami and so on and so forth. Let me throw it to you, Damien. I haven't heard from them, but what are they?
Yeah, I haven't heard from them myself. But actually feel like they owe the president, the duty. I mean, like they owe the president the duty of care to share their advice directly to him.
Okay.
So I don't feel like they owe. I mean, the populace. I'm not sure they're meant to come out here on press to say this is what we've advised the president. So I wouldn't say they've not said anything, and it may also be the case that the border closure is even the idea. You understand? But for me, just to add to the last thing you said, Rotus, I actually feel like if you've been observing CBN's body language and their motive, both fiscal and monetary, you see that one thing they've been trying to do is to boost local production of goods and services. So the CBN tried doing that via the ban of 41 items. So I think that wasn't successful because you've seen the parallel and interbank, you've seen that I mean, like the spread, you've seen that close. So, I mean, there's really no incentive for that end. So I think they took this a step further to say, fine, since that's not successful and other policies have not come true, let's go ahead to close the border and see if they will reap dividend from that. And like I mentioned before, if you look at the likes of Okomo, the likes of Presco, and some other companies as well that have reported slower sales, due to demand for imported CPO and the likes. We've actually seen that their Q3 numbers, which they recently released, shows that sales have increased massively, and management actually alluded that to the border closure and the like. So while we might see some negative, I actually feel like their gains are positive.
Okay, let me get your thoughts real quick. Let me read this from Isaac. Isaac says that this is it actually the closure may bring tremendous benefits if the government puts some internal issues to rest. So Ugo, why haven't we heard from the Economic Advisory Council on this?
I don't. Do you think I'm actually a member?
you have connections now.
Anyway, I don't think that they would probably come out to the public to make any fancy announcements. I guess that whatever reservations they have, they would have passed it on to the president. And just to be clear, the Rotus, it's not like border closures are a bad idea completely, right? So there's got to be some advantages in here. What is not very clear to Nigerians, like I said, is what do you intend to get out of this, and how do we measure it? And that's because you just don't close borders outrightly for no reason. So there's got to be clear, and it's not just coming out and telling us that look, let's bear it, it's hard, let's just suffer it for a while, and all this kind of rhetorics that you're seeing, by government officials or hearing from government officials. So we just need to be clear, like I said. What exactly do we intend to get out of this? What are the clear parameters? How do we measure it? Are we saying that it's going to save us $10 billion or $1 billion over the next 3 or 4 years? Things like that. That's what we need to know, because posterity will judge. Eventually, articles or papers are going to be written about this border closure over the next few years. Over the next 5-10 years, students are already, watching and seeing what's happening, and people collecting data already. So we got to be clear about what this is supposed to bring for us. That's just my own opinion.
Cool. All right. Okay. So Fred, Lara, and Debo are all saying that if you pick the rice properly, there should be no stones in the
Maybe you bought that bag. You bought the baggage ones.
Thank you,
You want the baggage and leave local.
Oluzio said January 31st is actually not the terminal date for border closure according to NCS. High price wolves ahead is what he's predicted. And Inka said that he thinks the CBN should start giving loans for the rice processing machines, and even the IIT and NAFDAC, Ministry of Agriculture, should begin to go around and ensuring the price is rice is properly processed. Okay.
And he and I were going back and forth on Twitter. Yinka is not a fan of local rice either. Nengi is correcting me. Nengi, we say CFA, just she's saying please say it correctly. They are CFA charter holders. All right, duly noted. But as short, we all just say CFA. But I get you, Nengi. You are correct.
Remy says, please, what is the effect on border closure on exports?
Yeah, Remy. So the whole idea is that it's import substitution. They're basically saying that they want to reduce imports so that local producers can produce more. So theoretically, if they can produce more and satisfy local demand, if there's any excess, they can export it. But until now, we still ain't seen nothing. Right? But anyway, guys, okay, enough of this. But I wanted to go to the quotes from the head of customs. They had a very interesting video that people were talking about. But let's move on. Stamp duty. I went to go buy some groceries at the supermarket. I was charged. I asked them what's going on. They said that's what's happening, that they're also getting charged as well. I thought this was only fuel stations, but apparently it's so uneven.
It's I mean, I think we mentioned it here weeks back on the show that look, with the new CBN circular that was issued then, it was subtly written there. A lot of people didn't see that. It was clear that all transactions now that you typically do through POS. So what the government is basically saying is, before, when you do POS transactions, so the POS, I've forgotten what they call them again.
Yeah, the machines.
The companies behind all this POS.
Yeah.
So they basically scoop all that money and they now sweep to the merchant's account, right? So the government is saying, hold on a minute, that's some revenue loss there. If those guys were actually buying, transferring money to the supermarkets on their own,
right,
then they would have been paying stamp duty.
Right.
So they're circumventing this by paying it through the POS channel. So you know what? For every POS, every inflow you receive on your POS, you're going to pay me $50. That's what the government is basically saying. And it was clearly written in that. It was subtly written in this circular. You wouldn't even notice.
Boy.
So we put it out there that, look, guys, this is what's going to happen. So I'm not surprised. And it's everywhere. It's not just filling stations, supermarkets, anywhere they use POS, clubs. People will start to get to know. Hotels, anywhere, they're going to charge you $50. So it all depends on the company.
Go ahead, Dami.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I understand what Ugodre is saying, but then I struggle with the underlying motive. You understand? Because on the one hand, CBN is coming out to say by 2020 we want to go cashless policy and all of that, and they've complained that it costs money. You understand, to print naira. But then what you find is, for every transaction you do on POS, you pay 50 naira and you are tempted to carry cash around.
Right.
You understand? Because you don't want to pay 50 naira every time you use the POS.
Exactly.
So at the end of the day, we are going back to the main problem. You understand? Not carrying cash around. Like, you are not solving that problem entirely. You understand? And at the end of the day, you keep incurring costs to produce mains and all of that.
It's like diverting traffic because you're fixing a road, and then ask everybody to follow this other road that's filled with potholes.
Yeah, I just feel like it's a short-term fix.
But I kind of think that to really get what they're saying, you got to understand the underlying economics of their point. If you were going to make a transfer today, right, or if you're going to get an inflow into your account, you would pay stamp duty.
Right.
$50, you pay stamp duty.
Mm.
So what they are saying is that it's the same thing.
Right.
So the guy who owns the POS machine, right, anytime he gets inflow into his account, he should pay stamp duty, except you have some kind of waiver. But it's actually the other way around. So the guys with the POS machines are actually now charging you for that stamp duty. It shouldn't actually be that way. They are actually the ones that should bear the cost of that of the stamp duty and not you. So I mean,
because you're using the service.
Yeah, you're using their service. It really shouldn't be you. So
You
it's
have an
really
option.
up to company merchants and all that to go and lobby with the CBN and say, look, this is affecting mobile money and
so
cashless and all that.
Speaking of which, Sheon says he's protesting with his pockets. He's not doing POS anymore. He's doing with cash. And this is the inevitable reaction. Dami too is saying it's
short term though. You get tired at the end of the day. that's what government does with taxes.
Oh, God.
They know you get tired.
MI from Akuka, hilarious message. He
I
said
had such rice and I almost swallowed 4 infinity stones. Other government seems unbothered by the effects of the closure. Curious to know their metric of success. That's the essential question you're going to ask today.
Dikpo, who else? Saying that I think Ade as well, saying that these are also on web charges as well. So Black Friday is likely to be impacted for any people looking for sales.
Yeah, like I said, it all depends on the merchant. So I mean, smart guys will typically just indirectly increase their cost one way or the other.
Exactly.
You know what
So
I
you can
mean? Cover it and
there's
tell them
VAT
that you're not
as
paying.
well. So
there's also the VAT.
Jason says when the merchant gets a transfer into his account, he's not charged to 0.75%. And Yinka says I don't go about with cash at all. In fact, this has been a major issue between myself and my wife. I'm the cashless POS centric guy next door, but at this rate, I do not think I can cope with the 50 naira every now and then. I just hope this thing won't cause trouble in the long run.
Now, wow, we'll have to see. Val,
40 seconds.
40 seconds, real quick, guys. Maybe we'll go more into this tomorrow. The federal government has a Vision 2040 now. This was announced at Business Day events. Minister of Finance.
Anything to do with clean energy?
Please, real quick, split it 20 seconds. Let's go with you first. What are your thoughts? It's now Vision 2020 has become Vision 2040.
You need to realize that for every new childbirth you have, you need a vision for them. So 2040 is for those that have just been born. So those of us, we had better life for rural women. It was as if 2000 would never come, but now
sounds like an ad.
Dami, what are your thoughts on Vision 2040?
My thought is I want them to come out to tell us what we've achieved with Vision 2020,
right?
And if we've achieve all of that, then we can move on to Vision 2040.
Yeah.
But I don't see any reason why we should begin to 2040 if we've not achieved 2020.
Lagos, we're going to get into that tomorrow, so prepare yourselves. I want you all, if any of you have felt any impact from the economic recovery growth plan, which the finance minister said is now over, and they now want to move to something else. Let's hear your thoughts tomorrow on that. But thank you all for. Look at Yinka. Yinka never satisfied. Yinka said we should do 25 minutes. Agreed. Ugo Dre of Nairametrics, thank you. Damilola of ARM, thank you both for coming in. Appreciate
Rotus of Smooth FM.
Yes, and most importantly, our listeners. Thank you all for your messages.
Valentine of Smooth.
Yes, solid guy.
Brought to you by EnterSwitch.